Did you know that you can create any seamless pattern you want straight in Procreate? It is easier than you think, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it, no matter your skill level.
Hello wonderful people, it's Genevieve, and my goal here on this channel is to teach you all about illustration and design. So if you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the weekly videos and so that you can join our wonderful creative community. And with that said, grab your drawing tools and let's get started.
So before creating the pattern itself, there are a few things we need to take into consideration when creating our file. So we're going to create a custom canvas by clicking on this icon right here. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to take your pattern and turn them into real-life fabric. And for that, we're going to use a website called Spoonflower. And Spoonflower does have some guidelines in regards to which files you can upload on their website. So that's pretty much what we need to, tweak and adjust in our canvases before we can start to create the pattern. The first of which is we need to have RGB as our color profile. It is kind of strange because usually when we print we want CMYK, but in this case Spoonflower requires RGB. Any of the options will work, just make sure again it is RGB. You also need to set the DPI at 150, which I know might sound a little bit strange. If we're printing, usually we're going with 300, but Spoonflower requires 150. Now for this size, you can use whatever you want. I'm going with 5 by 5, but you can even create a rectangle. Seriously, any size you want is going to work. So just RGB and 150 DPI, and then you can create your canvas and you're going to be good to go. So the absolutely most important thing you need to do when you're creating your design is you need to have your background on a separate layer. So you cannot use the background function from Procreate. Even if you don't want to have your background, meaning if you want it to be white, you need to create a layer and drag your color onto that layer. And once you have your solid color on one layer, you can create any design of your choice on top of it. In this tutorial, I thought it might be nice to show you how to do really simple, modern oranges. So for that, I'm just going to draw some circles, orange circles, and I'm going to show you a few tips on, how to create very simple designs. But if you already have a design in mind, you can just skip to the next step in which I'm going to show you how to make it a seamless pattern. That being said, if you want to draw the oranges, once you have your orange circles, go ahead and create a new layer. And in the Harmony tool from the color panel, you can select analogous on the top here, and that's going to suggest you a few colors. You're going to go with the one that looks the most like green, pick that up, and go back to classic. You're going to actually, select it so that it is a green. And you're just going to draw some, ooh, that was way too big. Just going to draw some leaves. So here I'm not going to go into too much detail about the design because that's not the point of the tutorial, but still, it's a really good occasion to give you some general tips and pointers that can help you create pretty much any type of design that you want. So for the leaves here, you can see I'm drawing 1 or 2 per orange, and I'm putting them on different parts of the orange so that the design is interesting no matter the side or the angle that it is viewed at. And we're going to use Alpha Lock to add a little bit more texture to our oranges. So to activate Alpha Lock, all you have to do is open the layer panel and then swipe on your layers with 2 fingers towards the right. You could also just tap on the layer and then activate Alpha Lock in the menu, and you can see this kind of checkered pattern appear behind your shapes. So we're going to make our green a little bit darker, and now we can just brush over the leaves to add, maybe half of the leaf as a darker green or an entire leaf as a darker green, basically just kind of adding a little bit more detail, and everything we draw is going to stay within the base shape that we created at first because we have Alpha Lock. And we're going to do the same thing on the orange layer, so just going back in the history, picking the orange we used, making it a little bit darker, and then we can just go over our oranges and brush in some shadows. And you can use this technique to add as many details, texture you want. I'm personally just going to go in and add a little bit of light, so making my green lighter and a little bit more yellow as well. And then just going in and adding some, basic blobs to show the light. So in terms of pattern, especially a pattern that is going to be fairly small like the one I'm making right now, you don't want to have too many intricate details. I mean, you don't want to have intricate details at all because you're not going to see them and it's going to be kind of too much for the pattern. So if you're making a pattern that has very small elements like these, make sure that is, fairly simple. Otherwise, you might be a little bit disappointed when you get your fabric back because the details are just not going to show up. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a flower situation, so creating a layer above everything, picking just white and drawing, very simple flowers that have 5 petals. It is just going to bring the pattern together a little bit more, because otherwise it looks like the orange is like kind of floating in the middle of nothing, and it's not necessarily going to be the best look when we, create the repeating pattern, in my opinion. I personally like to have kind of a main element, in this case the orange, that is repeating and that is bigger, and then having a secondary element that kind of ties in everything together, so the flowers. And I'm just going to color pick the lighter part of my orange and use that color to add a little bit of a center to my flowers, and that's it. And it is time for the secret password. So if you've watched this Finder video, please go ahead and comment pattern. We've been doing this for a few weeks, almost months honestly now, and it's just really great. It gives me a lot of insight into how to edit and pace my videos better, which helps me to create better tutorials for you guys. And it's also really cool because you guys know me, but I don't know you, and whenever you leave a comment, I get to see sometimes your name, sometimes even your face, and it's just so great to see the wonderful creative community that we're building here on this channel. So go ahead and comment pattern, and we'll keep going. Okay, so now how do we take this and turn it into a pattern? Well, first thing we have to do is select all our layers by swapping them towards the right and then grouping them by clicking on the group option, and we can then just collapse the group by tapping on the little arrow. We're then going to swipe the group towards the left and duplicate it so that we have 5 copies of the group. And the bottom one, we are going to lock and hide because it's going to be our safety group. So just swipe it towards the left and click lock, and then you can just hide it. We're also going to hide all of the groups except for the top one, and we're going to select this top one. Now with the arrow tool, we're going to go ahead and activate both magnetics and snapping. That is very, very, very important. And at this point, what we want is to take this group and put it in the top left quadrant of our canvas so that it perfectly aligns with, the center. And it needs to be perfectly aligned. And when it is perfectly aligned, you're going to see these orange guides show up. Don't release your finger before you see these lines, otherwise your seamless pattern is not going to be seamless. Everything needs to be perfectly aligned. And we're going to repeat the exact same steps with the other groups in the other quadrants. So go ahead and reactivate the second group and put it in the top right quadrant. Then we're going to reactivate the third group and put it in the bottom left quadrant. And you guessed it, we're going to reactivate the fourth group and put it in the bottom right quadrant. Again, make sure everything is perfectly aligned. So this is technically a pattern that you could repeat. Now you can edit it as much as you want as long as you don't touch the edges. But right now that might be a little bit tricky because all our layers are separate in different groups. So go ahead and select all your same elements and group them together, and then you can just flatten the group to bring back, for example, all the same flowers on the same layer. So you're going to do that with the leaves, so grouping them and then merging that group or flattening that group, selecting the oranges, grouping them, and flattening the new group, and then same thing with your background, just grouping that and flattening that group. You can then kind of delete the empty groups that created. If you only have one layer, you're not going to have to do that, but if you want to keep your things separate and make sure that you can edit them easily, that's basically just a little extra step. And at this point, you can edit whatever you want. For example, I want to move this flower here. I just noticed that I don't really like the placement, so I'm just going to move them a little bit. But make sure that you don't touch the edges, otherwise it's not going to be seamless anymore. If you want to change something that is on the edge, you kind of have to repeat the step that we just did of creating a bunch of groups and then moving the groups into the different quadrants of our canvas. And effectively what that does, it just brings the edges of your piece in the middle of the canvas, which means you can edit it very easily without making your pattern not a seamless pattern anymore. So although we know that in theory this is a seamless pattern, we haven't really seen it in action. So if we want to test it out, we're just going to duplicate our group again to make sure that we have 5 copies. The bottom one becomes a security copy again. And the reason why we do that basically is Procreate deletes everything that is outside of the canvas. And since we're moving layers around, we would risk losing the design that we worked on. So if we create a copy of the group as a safety copy, we're always going to be able to go back to that one if we mess up something when we're moving the layers around. So once you have your 5 group copies, just go ahead and select the top 4, and again, using the arrow tool, activating magnetics and snapping, this time we're going to reduce the size of our group so that it fits in the lower right quadrants like this. Again, make sure that it is perfectly aligned. Then you can just use your arrow tool, selecting 1 layer group at a time, and then tiling your pattern to see if it works, and it should work perfectly. As you can see here, it creates a perfectly repeated seamless pattern. Now all you have to do in order to use it is export it. So for Spoonflower, you need to export it either as a JPEG or a PNG. So we're just gonna go in the wrench icon here at the top, and in the share option, we're gonna pick JPEG. You're then going to click on Save Image right here, which is going to save the image on your camera roll with your other pictures on your iPad. So once you have your pattern and you're happy with it, all you have to do is to go on spoonflower.com and click Upload your design here at the top. You're then going to be able to choose the file to upload, so just select Photo Library and then pick whichever pattern you've created and you want to add to Spoonflower. Then you're just going to click on Add. You're going to check this little box here to say that you do own the copyright, if you do own the copyright, of course. And then you're going to just click on Upload. This might take, a few minutes depending on the size of your file. And once you're done, you're going to be automatically sent to this page on which you can straight up order your fabric. So super simple, you can pick which type of fabric you want. They have a massive selection. You can just, click on the little arrow here to see the entire list. You can also pick the size and amount. And you could even sell your pattern if you wanted, so this is a little bit too advanced for this specific video, but I am going to link the procedure that you have to follow to sell your patterns in the description below if that's something you're interested in. But basically, you would fill in the name, the description, add some tags, pick the thumbnail, and then click a few little box, and you would have to order a sample of your pattern so that you can color match the colors from your screen and the actual fabric before you're able to sell it. So again, I'm going to link the procedure in the description below. And if you're ready to create your very own custom pattern, but you're not exactly sure what to draw, well, I highly recommend that you watch this video in which I'm going to show you how to draw a really cute watercolor cactus, which would look so good on fabric. So give this video a like and then click on the link right here, and I'll meet you there.